please," Isabella whispered, her breath catching as her fingers wrapped around worn leather. "Kiss me. My ex is watching." The warrior went still. Firelight from the Moonfire Festival danced across his features, a face carved from stone and shadow, dark hair falling past shoulders wrapped in battle-scarred armor. He smelled of winter forests and sharpened steel, of old violence and something unbearably steady beneath it all. Isabella didn't dare look behind her. She didn't need to. Nathan's presence was a familiar poison, the weight of his stare like hands around her throat. The same possessive claim he'd worn the night she'd fled their bond ceremony, leaving him humiliated before the entire pack. The stranger's eyes found hers, dark, unreadable, searching. "Are you in danger?" His voice was low, careful. She nodded. Once. Sharp. He moved before she could breathe. His hand cupped her jaw, calloused, gentle, and then his mouth was on hers. The world collapsed into silence. The kiss wasn't hungry. It was deliberate, protective, like he was building a wall around her with his body alone. His other hand came to rest at the small of her back, steadying, shielding her from the watching crowd. Above them, something shifted. The moon burned brighter through the smoke and celebration, casting silver across the cobblestones. Wolves in the crowd went quiet, uneasy. Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. Not from desire, but from the sudden, overwhelming sense that she'd just stepped off a cliff she hadn't seen coming. When he pulled back, his eyes hadn't left her face. Nathan's furious curse cut through the noise behind her, followed by the sharp crack of boots on stone, retreating, humiliated for the second time. Isabella exhaled, a shuddering breath she'd been holding since she'd felt Nathan's eyes on her from across the festival square. Her hand was still pressed against the stranger's chest. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and unhurried beneath the armor. "Thank you," she whispered, stepping back quickly, suddenly aware of what she'd done, what she'd asked of him. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have." "You did what you needed to." His voice was quiet, firm. No judgment, no expectation. She looked up at him then, really looked. There was something about the way he held himself, command wrapped in restraint, power leashed so tightly she almost hadn't noticed it. Almost. "He won't bother you again tonight," the stranger said. "You don't know Nathan." Isabella's laugh came out bitter. "He doesn't let things go. Then neither will I." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Something in Isabella's chest cracked open. Just a fraction, just enough to let in a sliver of something she hadn't felt in months. Safety. Before we continue, hit the subscribe and like button and tell me what the weather looks like in your location. I love to know. Now let's dive in. She studied him in the firelight. Broad shoulders, scars along his knuckles, a face that had seen violence and survived it. But his eyes, God's, his eyes, held no cruelty, no calculation, just quiet concern and a question he wouldn't voice aloud. "Who hurt you?" "I should go," Isabella said, though her feet didn't move. "You've done enough." "Have I?" He tilted his head slightly, and for the first time she saw the faintest hint of something softer beneath the warrior's mask. "You're still shaking." She was. Her hands trembled at her sides, adrenaline and fear still coursing through her veins. "I'll be fine," she lied. He didn't call her on it. Instead, he glanced toward the crowd, then back to her. "Let me walk you home, please." It was the please that undid her. Nathan had never asked. He'd demanded, commanded, taken. This stranger, this man who'd kissed her like she was something precious, was offering her a choice. "All right," Isabella heard herself say. They walked in silence at first, leaving the noise and light of the festival behind. The cobblestones gave way to dirt paths, the air growing cooler as they moved toward the edge of town where her small shop sat, tucked between an apothecary and a blacksmith's forge. "I'm Isabella," she finally said. "Vale. Isabella Vale." "Gabriel." She waited for a surname. None came. "Just Gabriel? For now?" She should have pressed, should have asked why a man dressed like a mercenary carried himself like royalty, why wolves had gone silent when he'd kissed her, why the moon had seemed to react. But she didn't, because for the first time in longer than she could remember, Isabella felt like she could breathe, and she wasn't ready to break whatever spell had been woven between them. "The festival comes once a year," Gabriel said quietly, his gaze sweeping the path ahead. "You came alone? Safer that way?" Isabella pulled her shawl tighter. "Witnesses, crowds. Nathan's less likely to escalate. And when the festival ends?" She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Gabriel made a sound low in his throat. Not quite anger. Not quite frustration. Something deeper. "How long?" "6 months since I left." Isabella's voice steadied. "The bond ceremony was 2 days away. I ran the night before." "Brave." "Desperate," she corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" They reached her shop, a small building with herbs drying in the windows and the faint scent of lavender clinging to the doorframe. Isabella stopped, turned to face him properly. "Thank you, Gabriel. Really. I don't know how I'll repay." "Don't." His hand lifted, then dropped, like he'd thought better of reaching for her. "You don't owe me anything." Isabella's throat tightened. Most men would expect. I'm not most men. No, he wasn't. She watched him in the moonlight, this stranger who'd saved her without asking for anything in return, who'd kissed her like she mattered, who'd walked her home like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Will you be in town long?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Gabriel's expression shifted, something unreadable passing behind his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or longing. "Longer than I planned." Isabella smiled despite herself. Despite everything. "Good." He returned it. Barely. Just a faint curve at the corner of his mouth. But it transformed his entire face. Made him look younger. Human. "Good night, Isabella Vale." "Good night, Gabriel." She watched him disappear into the shadows between buildings, his footsteps silent despite his size, and only when he was gone did Isabella realize her hands had stopped shaking. She touched her lips, still warm from the kiss, and felt the world tilt beneath her feet, because Isabella Vale had just begged a kiss from a stranger at the Moonfire Festival. She just didn't know she'd chosen the one man in the northern ridges who could rewrite her fate, the Alpha King, and he'd let her. Before we continue, hit the subscribe and like button, and tell me what the weather looks like in your location. I love to know. Now, let's dive in. Gabriel should have left at dawn. His horse was stabled, his supplies packed. The next village waited 3 days north, and he'd already stayed longer than was wise. Kings didn't linger in border towns, not when traveling in disguise, not when avoiding the council's watchful eyes. But dawn came and went, and Gabriel found himself walking toward the herbalist's shop instead. The sign above the door read, "Vale's Remedies," in faded paint. Through the window he could see her, Isabella, bent over a workbench, golden braid falling across one shoulder as she ground something in a mortar with practiced efficiency. She was talking. Gabriel paused, listening. "I'm sorry," Isabella murmured to the plant she was trimming. I know. You were doing so well." Snip. A stem fell away. But Mrs. Hemming needs you more than I need you, pretty. Despite himself, Gabriel smiled. The shop bell chimed as he pushed open the door. Isabella looked up, surprise flashing across her face before softening into something warmer. Gabriel, you apologized to plants. Color rose in her cheeks. You weren't supposed to hear that. It's kind, he said simply, stepping into the shop. Dried herbs hung from the ceiling, lavender, rosemary, something sharp and medicinal he didn't recognize. The space smelled like earth and growing things, safe and alive. The world could use more kindness. Isabella set down her shears, wiping her hands on her apron. Most people think I'm eccentric. Most people are fools. Her laugh surprised them both, light, genuine, unguarded. You came back. I said I would. Men say a lot of things. Isabella's smile faded slightly. They rarely mean them. Gabriel held her gaze. I meant it. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with something neither was ready to name. I'm making salves, Isabella said finally, gesturing to her workbench. For the miller's daughter. She burned her hand on the bread oven. Can I help? She blinked. You want to help me make salves? Unless you'd prefer I leave. No. The word came quick, almost desperate. Isabella caught herself, steadied her voice. No, I'd like the company. So Gabriel stayed. She set him to grinding dried comfrey root while she measured beeswax and oil, their movements falling into an easy rhythm. She explained each ingredient as she worked, why calendula helped skin heal, why comfrey drew out infection, why the proportions mattered. Gabriel listened, really listened. Didn't interrupt, didn't question her knowledge or talk over her the way men often did with women who knew their craft. You're quiet, Isabella observed, glancing at him sideways. You're interesting. I'm talking about plants. Yes. She studied him, head tilted. You really mean that? Why wouldn't I? Isabella's hands stilled over her work. Nathan used to fall asleep when I talked about my shop. Said it was unbecoming for an Omega to care so much about herbs when she should be focused on bond readiness. Gabriel's jaw tightened. He was an idiot. He was following pack law. Isabella's voice went flat. The council approved our match. I was supposed to be grateful. Were you? No. She returned to her salve with more force than necessary. I was terrified. Gabriel wanted to ask more. Wanted to know every detail of what she'd survived, what she'd escaped. But he'd learned long ago that some stories needed space to breathe. So he ground the comfrey root and waited. The law says Omegas don't choose their bonds, Isabella continued quietly. The council decides based on bloodlines, pack alliances, breeding potential. She spat the last words like poison. Nathan's family had status, mine didn't. The match made political sense. And your feelings? Didn't matter. Isabella measured oil with shaking hands. Feelings never matter when you're Omega-born. Gabriel's chest tightened with an old familiar fury. This was why he traveled his lands in disguise, to see what his council hid from him, to hear what his people truly suffered beneath laws he'd inherited but never questioned. Until now. It should matter, he said softly. Your choice should matter. Isabella's eyes snapped to his, searching. You really believe that? Yes. Something shifted in her expression. A wall coming down just slightly. They worked in silence after that, but it felt different, companionable, safe. When Isabella reached for a jar on a high shelf, Gabriel moved instinctively, his hand steadying her elbow as she stretched on her toes. The touch lasted only a moment, but he felt her heartbeat spike beneath his palm. "Thank you," she murmured. He stepped back, giving her space. "You're welcome." The afternoon bled into evening. Gabriel helped her deliver the salve to the miller's house, carrying her basket without being asked. On the walk back, Isabella told him about the town, who lived where, who had feuds, who'd helped her when she'd first opened her shop with nothing but borrowed coin and determination. "Mrs. Chen gave me my first real customer," Isabella said, warmth in her voice. "Everyone else was afraid of Nathan's family. But she walked right in, bought 4 jars of salve, and told me I had steady hands." She was right. Isabella glanced at him. "You've known me a day. I've seen enough." They reached her shop as twilight settled over the town. Isabella hesitated at the door, keys in hand. "Will you—" She stopped, started again. "I have mint tea, if you'd like to come in." Gabriel knew he should refuse, knew spending more time with her was dangerous, not because she posed a threat, but because she made him want things kings couldn't afford, like simplicity, like honesty, like being seen as just a man. "I'd like that," he heard himself say. Isabella's smile could have lit the darkening street. Inside, she set water to boil while Gabriel examined her workspace more carefully. Every surface held purpose. Drying racks, labeled jars, carefully organized tools. This wasn't a hobby. This was mastery built through dedication and love. "You've built something remarkable here," Gabriel said. "It's small. It's yours." Isabella paused in measuring tea leaves, her eyes finding his across the small room. "That matters to you. Ownership." "Freedom matters to me," Gabriel corrected. "The right to build your own life without someone else's permission. That's a radical thought in the northern ridges. Is it wrong?" "No." Isabella's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "It's just rare to hear a man say it." Gabriel crossed to where she stood, careful to maintain distance, but needing her to see his face, to see the truth in his eyes. "You deserved better than Nathan," he said quietly. "You deserve better than a world that treats choice as a privilege instead of a right." "And you?" Isabella asked, studying him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "What do you deserve, Gabriel?" "To be known," he thought. "To be seen as more than my title." But he couldn't say that. Not yet. Not when she didn't know who, what, he really was. "A cup of that mint tea," he said instead, offering a small smile. "If the offer still stands." Isabella laughed. Soft, a little sad. Like she knew he was deflecting, but would let him anyway. "It stands." They sat at her small table as darkness fell outside, drinking tea sweetened with honey the way she liked it. And when Isabella told him about leaving Nathan the night before the ceremony, about running with only what she could carry, about the shame the pack elders heaped on her, about rebuilding everything alone, Gabriel listened and wanted to burn the world down for what it had done to her. But he didn't say that. He just listened, remembered, and promised himself that if he survived what was coming, things would change. Starting with her. 3 nights later, Isabella woke to screaming. Not her own, though her heart launched into her throat hard enough to choke her. The sound came from outside, from the small room Gabriel had rented above the blacksmith's forge across the lane. She was moving before conscious thought caught up, throwing a shawl over her nightdress and grabbing the knife she kept by her bed. The street was empty, silver-washed with moonlight. She crossed it in bare feet, taking the exterior stairs 2 at a time. His door was unlocked. "Gabriel?" He sat upright on the narrow bed, chest heaving, dark hair plastered to his neck with sweat. In the dim light from the window, she could see his hands, clenched into fists so tight his knuckles had gone white. "Isabella." Her name came out rough, disoriented. "You shouldn't." "You were screaming." He flinched, looked away. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you." "I'm not complaining." Isabella set down the knife, moved closer slowly, the way she would approach a wounded animal. "Nightmare." Gabriel's jaw worked. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, yes. She sat on the edge of his bed, careful to leave space between them. This close, she could see the scars, old ones, crisscrossing his shoulders and arms in patterns that spoke of violence survived. Battle-worn, he'd said. She was beginning to understand what that meant. "Do you want to talk about it?" "No." A pause, then quieter. "But I probably should." Isabella waited. She'd learned patience in her work. Plants grew at their own pace, wounds healed in their own time. People were no different. Gabriel dragged a hand through his hair, and she noticed it trembling. Just slightly. Just enough. "I dream about the people I've killed," he said finally. "About the ones I couldn't save." His voice dropped to something hollow. "About becoming the kind of man who stops caring about the difference." Isabella's chest tightened. "You care. That's why you have nightmares." "Is it?" Gabriel's eyes found hers, dark, haunted, searingly vulnerable. "Or am I just afraid of what I'm becoming?" "What do you think you're becoming?" "A monster." The word came out flat, final, like he'd already accepted it as truth. "I don't believe that." "You don't know me, Isabella." "I know you apologized to me when you didn't need to," she countered, leaning forward. "I know you asked if I was in danger before you kissed me. I know you carry my basket without being asked, and listen when I talk about plants." She held his gaze. "Monsters don't do those things. Some monsters are very good at pretending. Is that what you're doing? Pretending?" Gabriel went still. In the moonlight, she could see the war playing out across his face, the urge to confess warring with the need to protect her from whatever truth he carried. "I'm trying," he said finally, "to be better than what I was raised to be." Isabella understood that. Gods, did she understand that? "I was raised to believe my value ended at my bloodline," she said softly, "that my worth was measured in breeding potential and obedience, that questioning the council was the same as betraying my pack." She picked at a thread on her shawl. "I had to unlearn all of it, had to decide what I believed when no one was watching." "And what do you believe?" "That fear doesn't make you a monster." Isabella met his eyes. "That trying to be better, even when it's hard, even when you fail, that's what makes you human." Something cracked in Gabriel's expression, relief maybe, or recognition. "You're afraid too," he said. Not a question. Terrified. The admission came easier than she expected. "Every time someone knocks on my door, I think it's Nathan. Every time I see pack elders in the market, I think they've come to drag me back." Her hands twisted in her lap. "I'm afraid I'll never stop looking over my shoulder. That I'll never really be free." "You left him," Gabriel said firmly. "You built this life alone. That takes incredible strength. It doesn't feel like strength, it feels like survival." "Sometimes they're the same thing." Isabella looked at him, really looked. At the scars and the shadows and the carefully controlled power he wore like a second skin. At the way he sat on the edge of his bed in the middle of the night, still trembling from whatever horrors lived behind his eyes. They were the same, she realized. Both afraid of what they'd come from. Both trying desperately to be something different. "What are you running from?" she asked quietly. Gabriel's laugh came out bitter. "What makes you think I'm running? You travel alone. You don't use a surname. You look at authority figures like you're expecting them to attack." She tilted her head. "And you haven't told me what you do, what you really are. Would it matter?" "I don't know," Isabella said honestly. "But I'd like to think it wouldn't." Gabriel studied her for a long moment, something heavy and unspoken settling between them. She had the distinct sense that he was deciding something, weighing options, calculating risk. "I'm afraid of power," he said finally, "of what it does to people, of what it might do to me." "You have power." "Yes, and you're afraid of using it." "I'm afraid of enjoying it." His hands clenched again. "There's a difference between necessary force and cruelty, but the line gets thinner every year, every decision, every time I have to choose between mercy and safety." Isabella reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. When he didn't, she rested her hand over his fist. His skin was fever warm, trembling with tension he couldn't quite control. "You're still choosing," she said. "That means the line hasn't disappeared yet." Gabriel stared at their joined hands like he was seeing something impossible. "You don't know what I've done." "No," Isabella agreed. "But I know what you're doing now. I know you're trying." She squeezed gently. "That has to count for something." His hand uncurled beneath hers, fingers threading through hers with desperate gentleness, like she was an anchor, like she was saving him. "Thank you," he whispered. They sat in silence after that, hands linked, both too afraid to break whatever fragile peace they'd found in shared vulnerability. Outside, the moon tracked slowly across the sky. Inside, Isabella felt the careful distance she'd maintained since Nathan crumbling. This was dangerous, she knew. Letting herself care, letting herself hope. But Gabriel had nightmares about becoming a monster, and she had nightmares about never being free, and somehow, impossibly, that made them both feel less alone. "Stay," Gabriel said as she moved to leave. Then quickly, "Not like, I just mean, until the sun comes up, if you're comfortable." Isabella should have said no, should have protected herself, maintained boundaries, remembered that she'd known this man for less than a week. But she could still feel the tremor in his hand, could still hear the raw fear in his voice when he'd called himself a monster. "All right," she said. So she stayed. They talked through the night, about small things, safe things, about her favorite flowers, wild roses, about his childhood love of horses. He'd named his first one Thunder, embarrassingly. About the way the world looked different at dawn than it did at dusk. And when the sun finally rose, painting her shop's windows gold across the lane, Isabella realized something terrifying. She was falling for a man whose real name she didn't even know. But worse, much worse, was the look in Gabriel's eyes when he watched her leave. Like he was falling too, and like it might destroy them both. Isabella was grinding valerian root when the shop bell chimed with too much force. She looked up, and her stomach dropped. Nathan stood in her doorway, filling the frame with calculated menace. He'd always known how to use his size as a weapon, how to make a room feel smaller just by entering it. Behind him, 2 pack enforcers waited on the street, arms crossed, watching. "Hello, Isabella." Her hands stilled on the mortar. "The shop is closed." "No, it's not." Nathan stepped inside, and she hated that she stepped back, hated the muscle memory of retreat. "The sign says open. It's closed to you." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Still so ungrateful. He pulled a folded parchment from his coat. Thick paper, official seal. "The council has reviewed our situation." Isabella's heart hammered. "We don't have a situation. We have an unfinished bond." Nathan set the parchment on her counter with deliberate care. "The council agrees that your temporary confusion has gone on long enough." Confusion. The word tasted like ash. "Is that what we're calling autonomy now?" "We're calling it what it is," A woman who doesn't understand her place. Nathan's voice hardened. You embarrassed me, Isabella. You embarrassed my family. And now you embarrass yourself, running a shop like some common beta, letting strange men walk you home. So he'd been watching. Of course he had. I'm not yours to monitor. Legally you are. Nathan tapped the parchment. This grants me the right to retrieve my intended mate and complete the bond ceremony, with force if necessary. The air left Isabella's lungs. You can't. I can. He moved closer, and she smelled whiskey on his breath. Day drinking. He only did that when he was angry. You had your little rebellion. Now it's time to come home. This is my home. This is a shop. Nathan's hand shot out, gripping her wrist hard enough to bruise. Your home is wherever I say it is. Let go of me. Or what? He leaned in, voice dropping to something cruel and intimate. You'll call for your mercenary? The one who thinks kissing you makes you his? Nathan's grip tightened. He's gone, Isabella. I made sure of it. Cold fear flooded her veins. What did you do? Nothing permanent, just made it clear that staying in town would be unwise. He was lying. He had to be lying. Gabriel wouldn't just leave without... The shop door opened. Nathan's head snapped around. Isabella's heart nearly stopped. Gabriel stood in the doorway, completely still, his eyes locked on Nathan's hand around Isabella's wrist. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Let her go. His voice was quiet. Deadly quiet. Nathan's laugh came out forced. This doesn't concern you, stranger. This is pack business. I said, let her go. Something in Gabriel's tone made the enforcers outside shift nervously, made Nathan's grip loosen just slightly, made Isabella suddenly remember all the small things she'd noticed but not questioned. The way wolves went silent when Gabriel passed. The way merchants never argued about coin. The way even drunk pack members gave him wide berth in the streets. You're not pack, Nathan said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. You have no authority here. I have enough. Gabriel stepped into the shop, and the space seemed to bend around him. Power rolled off him in waves, not threatening, but undeniable. Final warning, let her go, or I'll move you myself. Nathan released Isabella's wrist, but stood his ground. The council approved this match. The law supports me. The law, Gabriel said softly, is about to change. Who do you think you are? Gabriel's expression didn't change. Didn't need to. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. One of the enforcers outside went pale, took a step back, then another. Sir, the man said urgently, we should go. Nathan ignored him, too focused on Gabriel, too angry to notice what Isabella was beginning to see, the way Gabriel held himself. The barely leashed authority in every line of his body, the ancient power that suddenly seemed far too large for a simple mercenary. You're making a mistake, Nathan snarled. When the council hears about this, they'll hear from me directly, Gabriel interrupted. His voice carried an edge now, something that made Isabella's pulse quicken for entirely different reasons. I'll explain personally why their laws need revision. You? Nathan's laugh was ugly. You're nobody. Nathan. The enforcer's voice cracked with panic. We need to leave. Now. Something in the man's tone finally penetrated Nathan's rage. He looked at his enforcer, saw the fear there, and hesitated. Gabriel took another step forward, and Nathan bowed. It was slight, barely a dip of the head, but unmistakable, instinctive. The kind of submission wolves gave to overwhelming authority without conscious thought. Nathan straightened immediately, face flushing with humiliation and confusion. What? Leave, Gabriel said. Not a request, a command. Nathan left. He grabbed the parchment, shot Isabella a look that promised this wasn't over, and practically fled the shop. The enforcers followed, whispering urgently to each other. Silence crashed down. Isabella stared at Gabriel, her wrist throbbing where Nathan had gripped it, her mind racing through everything she'd just witnessed. The submission, the fear, the way even Nathan's body had recognized an authority his mind couldn't process. "Gabriel," she said slowly, "what just happened?" He crossed to her immediately, his hands hovering over her wrist without touching. "May I?" She nodded, and he examined the bruising with gentle fingers, his jaw tight with controlled fury. "I'm fine," Isabella said, "but you need to explain." "I know." He released her wrist carefully. "I will. Just not here. Not like this. You made him bow." Her voice shook. "He didn't even realize he was doing it." Gabriel's eyes met hers, and she saw the war there, the desire to tell her everything warring with the fear of what truth might cost them. "Isabella." The shop bell chimed again. They both spun. An older woman stood in the doorway, dressed in formal council robes, deep grey with silver threading that marked her as a high elder. Her eyes swept over the scene and landed on Gabriel with something like recognition and dread. "Your Majesty," she said, and dropped into a full curtsy. "Forgive the intrusion. The council requests your immediate presence." The world tilted sideways. "Your Majesty." Isabella heard the words, understood them individually, but together they made no sense, because that would mean... She looked at Gabriel, at the man who'd kissed her at the festival, who'd carried her basket, who'd sat in her shop drinking mint tea and talking about plants, the man who'd held her hand through nightmares and told her about his fear of becoming a monster. "No," she whispered. Gabriel's expression broke. "Isabella, you're the Alpha King." Not a question. A realization. A betrayal. Yes. The shop spun. Isabella grabbed the counter for balance, her mind fracturing into 1,000 questions, 1,000 implications. He'd lied. He'd been lying the entire time. Every conversation, every shared moment, every vulnerable confession, all of it built on a foundation of deception. Why? The word came out broken. "Because I wanted you to know me," Gabriel said desperately. "Not my title, not my power, just me. I don't know you at all. You do." He moved toward her, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "Everything I told you was true. The nightmares, the fear, Your Majesty," the elder interrupted gently. "The council is waiting." Gabriel didn't look away from Isabella. "I'll come back. We'll talk. I'll explain everything." "Don't." Isabella's voice hardened, self-preservation finally kicking in. "Don't come back. Isabella, please. You're the Alpha King." She laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "You can abolish laws, change the entire system. You have more power than anyone in the Northern Ridges." Her eyes burned. "And you let me think you were just... Gabriel." "I am just Gabriel with you." "No." She shook her head. "You're the man who could have told me the truth and chose not to. You're the man who let me fall for someone who doesn't exist." Gabriel flinched, like she'd struck him. "He exists. I exist. This," he gestured between them, "is real." "Is it?" Isabella's voice cracked. "Or is this just another game kings play?" "Your Majesty," the elder said again, more urgently. Gabriel held Isabella's gaze for one more heartbeat, pleading silently for understanding she couldn't give. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then he turned and left. The shop felt impossibly empty without him. Isabella stood alone among her herbs and salves, her wrist aching, her heart in pieces, trying to reconcile the gentle man she'd fallen for with the king who'd deceived her, and failing completely. Isabella didn't sleep. She paced her small room above the shop, replaying every conversation, every touch, every moment she'd thought was genuine. The way Gabriel had listened, the way he'd asked permission, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. Had any of it been real? Or had the Alpha King simply been amusing himself with a runaway Omega who didn't know any better? Dawn came grey and cold. Isabella was grinding chamomile, something to do with her shaking hands, when the commotion started outside. Voices, many of them, angry. She looked out the window, and her blood turned to ice. The town square was filled with wolves, pack members, enforcers, council elders in their formal robes. And in the center, flanked by guards in royal armor, stood Gabriel. He looked different in daylight, dressed in clothes that actually fit his station. Dark leather and silver threading, a cloak that caught the wind, authority radiating from him like heat from a forge. This was the Alpha King the Northern Ridges knew. Powerful, untouchable, dangerous. Nothing like the man who'd hummed while she stitched his wounds. Nathan stood before him, backed by 3 council elders, holding that damned parchment like a weapon. Isabella's stomach dropped. This was about her. She was moving before conscious thought, grabbing her shawl and running down the stairs. The crowd parted as she approached, wolves she'd known for months suddenly unable to meet her eyes. Clear violation of ancient law, one of the elders was saying. The Omega was assigned, the bond approved. You have no right to interfere. I have every right, Gabriel said, his voice carrying across the square with regal authority. As Alpha King, I am the law. You are a man, Nathan interjected, who has been manipulated by a woman who refuses to accept her place. Gabriel's eyes flashed gold. Watch your tone. My king. The eldest council member stepped forward, a woman Isabella recognized as Elder Morven, whose word could end careers and lives. We understand your interest in this situation, but the girl belongs to Nathan Greaves by council decree. She fled an approved bond. She must be returned. She belongs to no one, Gabriel said flatly. With respect, the law disagrees. Then the law is wrong. Shocked silence rippled through the crowd. Isabella pushed to the front, her heart hammering so hard she could barely breathe. What is this? She demanded. What's happening? Every head turned. Wolves bowed reflexively to Gabriel, not to her. She was still just the Omega who'd run, still just property being disputed. Gabriel's eyes found hers, and the naked relief in them made her chest ache. The council has formally accused me of corrupting an unbonded woman, he said, his tone careful, controlled, of using my position to manipulate you into refusing your assigned mate. That's insane. Is it? Elder Morven's sharp gaze fixed on Isabella. You refused Nathan for months. Then a stranger arrives, and suddenly you're seen walking with him, entertaining him in your shop, spending nights. We talked, Isabella snapped. We drank tea. He helped me make salves. And you kissed him at the Moonfire Festival, Nathan added, his voice dripping with false concern. In front of everyone, humiliating me, humiliating my family. I kissed him because you were threatening me. A convenient story. Elder Morven stepped closer, and Isabella fought the urge to retreat. But the facts remain. You are unbonded. Nathan has legal claim, and the Alpha King has interfered in a council-approved match. Her eyes gleamed. Unless he can provide legitimate reason for his interference, you must submit to the bond, today. The world tilted. Today. The council has been patient, Nathan said. Too patient. This ends now. Isabella looked at Gabriel, pleading silently for him to fix this, to use his power, to command them to stop. Gabriel knelt, right there in the town square, in front of the council and the pack, and every wolf watching. The Alpha King dropped to one knee. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. "What are you doing?" Elder Morven hissed. Gabriel ignored her, his eyes locked on Isabella. "I interfered because I have feelings for this woman, because I believe she has the right to choose her own path, because I will not, cannot, stand by while anyone is forced into a bond they don't want." "You're the king," Nathan sputtered. "You can't just—" "I am the king," Gabriel interrupted, still kneeling, still focused entirely on Isabella. "Which means I can do exactly this. I can choose to honor her autonomy over ancient law. I can choose her freedom over tradition." His voice softened. "I can choose her. If she'll have me." Isabella's throat closed. "Gabriel." "I should have told you," he continued, raw honesty bleeding through every word. "I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. But I was afraid. Afraid you'd see the crown before you saw me. Afraid you'd treat me like everyone else does." He swallowed hard. "I wanted you to know me as just a man, because that's what I am with you. Not a king, not an alpha. Just Gabriel." "This is absurd," Elder Morven snapped. "You would throw away centuries of tradition for one woman?" "Yes." The simple certainty of it hit Isabella like a physical blow. "You would risk your throne?" Another elder challenged. "Yes." "You would defy the council itself?" Gabriel finally looked away from Isabella, his gaze sweeping over the assembled wolves with unmistakable authority. "I will not force her. Not as king, not as alpha, not as a man. If that costs me my throne, so be it." The square exploded into chaos. Elders shouting, Nathan cursing, pack members arguing amongst themselves. But Isabella barely heard any of it over the roaring in her ears. He'd knelt. The Alpha King had knelt in front of his entire pack and chosen her freedom over his power. "Your Majesty, this is madness," Elder Morven said. "The girl is Omega-born. She has no status, no bloodline, no—" "She has courage," Gabriel interrupted, rising to his feet, but keeping his distance from Isabella, respecting the space between them. "She has strength. She left an abusive situation with nothing but determination. She built a life alone. She stands here now, facing down the entire council, because she refuses to be owned." His voice rang out clear and proud. "That makes her more worthy than most of the nobles in my court." Isabella's eyes burned. "The law still stands," Elder Morven insisted. "Nathan has legal claim, which I challenge under ancient law." Nathan's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Trial by combat. First blood decides Isabella's fate." "No, no, no, no." Gabriel went still, dangerously still. "You challenge me? I challenge your right to interfere." Nathan's smile was vicious. "If you win, the girl goes free. If I win, she completes the bond. Tonight." "Nathan, don't," Isabella breathed. But Gabriel was already nodding. "I accept." "No!" Isabella pushed through the crowd, grabbed his arm. "You can't. He'll kill you." Gabriel looked down at her, and something warm and devastating crossed his face. "He won't. You don't know that." "I do." He covered her hand with his just for a moment. "Trust me, please." "I trusted you before," she whispered. "And you lied to me." "I know." His voice cracked. "I know, and I'm sorry. But this—" He gestured between them. "This was never a lie. What I feel for you is real." "How do I know that?" "Because I'm about to fight for you," Gabriel said simply. "Not because you're mine. Not because I own you. But because you deserve the right to choose. even if you don't choose me." Isabella's breath caught. "The challenge is set," Elder Morven announced. "Combat begins at sunset. May the moon guide the victor." The crowd began to disperse, excited whispers spreading like wildfire. Nathan shot Isabella a triumphant look before being led away by his supporters. Gabriel started to follow his guards, but Isabella's hand tightened on his arm. "Why?" she asked. "Why risk everything?" He looked at her with such raw tenderness it hurt. "Because you showed me what it means to be brave. Because you chose freedom when it would have been easier to submit. Because you talked to plants and stitched my wounds and made me believe I could be better than what I was raised to be. Gabriel, because I love you," he said quietly. "And love means respecting your choice. All of your choices, including the choice to walk away from me." Isabella's world fractured and reformed around those words. "I never wanted to walk away," she heard herself say. "I wanted you to be honest. I know. I'm sorry. If you die tonight, I won't. But if you do," Isabella continued, voice shaking, "I need you to know. I need you to understand." She stepped closer, close enough to feel his warmth. "I fell in love with you too, with the man who listened and helped and never once told me what to do." Tears spilled over. "Not with the king, with you." Gabriel's composure shattered. He pulled her into his arms and she let him, burying her face against his chest. "I'm still that man," he murmured into her hair. "Title or not, crown or not, I'm still just Gabriel when I'm with you. Then don't die." "I won't. Promise me." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "I promise. I will win. And then you'll be free to choose whatever life you want." His thumb brushed her cheek. "With or without me." Isabella knew she should pull away, knew she should protect herself, guard her heart. But she'd already chosen. She'd chosen the moment he knelt. The hours until sunset crawled like years. Isabella returned to her shop, but her hands were too unsteady to work. She tried grinding herbs, spilled them, tried organizing jars, knocked 3 over, finally gave up and sat at her work table, staring at nothing, her mind spinning through every possible outcome. Gabriel could die tonight. The Alpha King could fall to Nathan's blade, and it would be her fault. Because she'd begged a kiss from a stranger, because she'd pulled him into her mess, because she'd made him care. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's open," she called, expecting a customer. Elder Morven entered instead, followed by 2 other council members Isabella didn't recognize. The temperature in the shop seemed to drop. "Isabella Vale," Elder Morven said formally. "The council requests your presence." "For what?" "To discuss your future, before the combat complicates matters further." Isabella's stomach knotted. "I have nothing to discuss with the council." "On the contrary." Elder Morven settled into the chair across from Isabella's work table, uninvited. "You have everything to discuss. Your actions have put the entire pack structure at risk." "My actions?" Isabella's voice rose. "I left an abusive match. That's all." "You fled a council-approved bond," one of the other elders corrected, a thin man with cold eyes. "You rejected your designated role in pack hierarchy, and now you've seduced the Alpha King into challenging centuries of law." "I didn't seduce anyone." "Didn't you?" Elder Morven leaned forward. "A convenient meeting at the festival. Wounded damsel begging for help, playing on his protective instincts." Her smile was razor-sharp. "You may be Omega-born, girl, but you're clearly clever enough to manipulate a king." Isabella's hands clenched into fists. "He kissed me because I was being threatened. Everything after was real." "Was it?" The third elder spoke now, a woman with grey-streaked hair and a voice like frost. Or did you see an opportunity? A chance to elevate yourself beyond your station? I don't want to be elevated. I want to be left alone. That's no longer an option. Elder Morven produced another parchment, this one sealed with the council's official mark. The king's challenge has forced our hand. We're offering you a choice. Isabella's blood ran cold. What choice? Submit to the bond with Nathan Greaves voluntarily before the combat begins. Elder Morven set the parchment on the work table. Complete the ceremony. Accept your designated mate, and the council will pardon your disobedience. And if I refuse, then regardless of the combat's outcome, you will be exiled from the northern ridges. Permanently. The elder's eyes gleamed. No pack will take you. No territory will shelter you. You'll be marked as a rebel Omega who corrupted a king. You'll spend the rest of your life running. The shop spun. You can't. We can. Elder Morven interrupted. And we will. The pack structure must be preserved. Order must be maintained. She stood smoothing her robes. You have until the combat begins to decide. Submit and stay, or refuse and lose everything, including any future with your beloved king. He won't let you exile me, won't he? The thin elder smiled cruelly. If he chooses you over the council's direct order, he'll fracture the entire pack system. Packs across the northern ridges will rebel, blood will spill, all because one Omega refused to accept her place. That's not fair, Isabella whispered. Fair? Elder Morven laughed. Child, life isn't fair. Life is order, structure, rules that keep chaos at bay. She moved toward the door. You have a choice to make. Choose wisely. The fate of more than just yourself hangs in the balance. They left. Isabella sat frozen, the parchment mocking her from the work table. Submit or be exiled. Sacrifice herself or watch Gabriel tear apart the kingdom for her. Some choice. She was still sitting there, numb and spiraling, when the door opened again. Gabriel. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, hair loose around his shoulders. Out of formal dress now, back in the simple clothes she recognized. Just Gabriel again. They came to you, he said. Not a question. How did you know? Because it's what they always do. Apply pressure where it hurts most. He crossed to her, slow and careful. What did they offer? Isabella's throat tightened. Submission or exile? Gabriel's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. They have no right. They have every right. They're the council. She looked up at him, tears threatening. And they're using me to control you. They're afraid. Gabriel knelt before her chair, that damned knee again, that gesture that unmade her every time. They're afraid because for the first time in centuries someone is questioning their authority, and they should be afraid, because I'm done letting them dictate people's lives. Gabriel, if you push this, if you choose me, Isabella's voice cracked. People will die, the kingdom will fracture, everything you're trying to protect will fall apart. Then it deserves to fall apart. You don't mean that. I do. His hands covered hers. Warm and steady. A system built on forcing people into bonds they don't want, on treating Omegas like property, on punishing choice. That system is already broken. It's been broken for generations. Someone just needs the courage to say it out loud. And the wolves who suffer while you rebuild, the families torn apart in the chaos, will suffer less than the generations who've been crushed under laws that strip them of autonomy. Gabriel's eyes burned with conviction. Yes, Change is painful. Yes, there will be resistance. But the alternative is letting this continue. Letting more Isabellas be forced into bonds with more Nathans. I won't do it. Not anymore. Isabella wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe love could be enough. That one person's courage could change centuries of tradition. But she'd lived in this world too long to be that naive. "What if I submit?" she asked quietly. Gabriel went still. "What? What if I complete the bond with Nathan? End this now, before the combat, before anyone else gets hurt?" "No." His voice turned sharp. "Absolutely not. It would solve everything. It would destroy you." Gabriel's hands tightened on hers. "Isabella, I've seen what forced bonds do. I've watched Omegas crumble under the weight of them, watched them lose themselves piece by piece, until nothing remains but obedience and resentment." His voice dropped to something raw. "I will not let that happen to you. It's my choice. Then choose yourself." He pulled back, giving her space, but holding her gaze. "Choose the life you built. Choose freedom. Choose the woman who had the courage to run when running was the hardest thing in the world. And what about you?" "I'll survive. Kings always do." "That's not what I meant." Isabella leaned forward. "What about us? What about this thing between us that feels like it might actually be real?" Gabriel's expression softened into something achingly tender. "Then we fight for it. Together. Not because I'm commanding you. Not because you're submitting. But because we both choose it." He stood, pulled her up with him. "I will fight Nathan tonight. I will win. And then you will be free to choose whatever future you want. If that future includes me, I'll spend every day earning that choice. If it doesn't," his voice caught, "then I'll respect it. But I will not let them take your choice away. They'll exile me. Let them try." The Alpha King emerged in his tone, not dominating but absolute. "I'll abolish exile before the sun rises tomorrow. I'll dismantle the Council's power to punish autonomy. I'll build a kingdom where choice matters more than tradition. You'll start a war. Then I'll fight a war." Gabriel cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "For you. For everyone like you. For a world where love is enough." Isabella's heart cracked wide open. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "So am I. What if you lose?" "I won't." "But what if?" Gabriel kissed her. Not like the first time, not desperate or shielding. This was claiming, promising. A kiss that tasted like defiance and devotion, and the desperate hope that love could actually change the world. When he pulled back, Isabella was shaking. "I love you," Gabriel said. "Whether I'm king or commoner, alpha or outcast. I love you, Isabella Vale. And I will spend every breath I have left proving it. Gabriel, trust me. One more time, please." Isabella looked at this man, this king, who'd knelt for her twice now, who'd risked everything for her freedom, who'd looked at a broken system and decided to tear it down rather than let her be crushed beneath it. And she made her choice. "I trust you," she whispered. "I choose you." The relief in his eyes could have lit the entire kingdom. "Then we'll face this together," he said. "Whatever comes." Outside, the sun began its descent toward the horizon. And in the town square, Nathan Greaves sharpened his blade, confident in his coming victory. He had no idea what was coming. Neither did the council. Because Isabella Vale and Gabriel Blackthorne weren't just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for every Omega who'd been forced to submit, every Beta who'd watched their friends be given away like property, every Wolf who'd ever wondered if there could be something better. And tonight, under the watchful moon, everything would change. Or they would die trying. The town square transformed at sunset. Torches ringed the cobblestones, casting dancing shadows across hundreds of gathered wolves. The entire pack had come, some hoping for blood, others for justice, most simply unable to look away from history unfolding. Isabella stood at the edge of the circle, flanked by 2 guards who'd been assigned to ensure she didn't flee. As if she could. As if she'd leave Gabriel to face this alone. Elder Morven stood at the center, playing magistrate, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd. By ancient law, Nathan Greaves has challenged the Alpha King's interference in a council-approved bond. First Blood decides Isabella Vale's fate. And her choice, Gabriel added, stepping into the circle. He'd stripped down to fighting leathers, his long hair tied back, every scar visible in the torchlight. Win or lose, her choice stands. That's not, Elder Morven started. Those are my terms. Gabriel's voice carried absolute authority. Accept them or forfeit the challenge. Nathan emerged from the opposite side, blade already drawn, confidence radiating from every line of his body. I accept. When I win, she'll choose me. Willingly. Isabella's stomach turned. He actually believed that. Believed she'd bond with him after he defeated Gabriel. The delusion was almost impressive. The combat begins at my signal, Elder Morven announced. First Blood ends the match. The moon bears witness. Isabella's hands clenched so hard her nails drew blood from her palms. Gabriel's eyes found hers across the circle. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just held her gaze for one heartbeat. I've got this, before turning to face Nathan. Begin! Nathan lunged immediately, blade arcing toward Gabriel's throat. Gabriel sidestepped, almost casual, letting Nathan's momentum carry him past. The crowd murmured. Stand still, Nathan snarled, spinning. Fight like a man. I am fighting. Gabriel's tone was infuriatingly calm. You're just slow. Nathan attacked again, a flurry of strikes meant to overwhelm. Gabriel deflected each one with minimal movement, reading the patterns, waiting. You're holding back, Isabella realized, whispering to herself. Why are you holding back? Because he didn't want to kill Nathan. Because First Blood meant he only needed to wound him. Because Gabriel was trying to end this with as little violence as possible. But Nathan wasn't. Nathan's next strike came low and vicious, aiming for Gabriel's leg, not for First Blood, but to cripple. Gabriel twisted away, but not quite fast enough. The blade caught his calf, slicing through leather and skin. Blood welled, dark in the torchlight. The crowd erupted. First Blood, Nathan shouted triumphantly. I win! No, Gabriel's voice cut through the noise like a knife. He looked down at his bleeding leg, then back at Nathan, something dangerous flickering in his eyes. That's not First Blood. You're bleeding. I haven't drawn blood yet. Gabriel's smile was sharp enough to cut. My turn. He moved. Isabella had seen wolves fight before. Savage, instinctive, brutal. This was different. This was centuries of training compressed into fluid motion. Gabriel became something other than human, faster, stronger, every movement precise and devastating. Nathan barely had time to raise his blade before Gabriel was inside his guard, striking with controlled fury. Once, twice, 3 times. Each blow calculated, each strike exactly where Gabriel wanted it. Nathan's sword clattered to the cobblestones. Gabriel's blade pressed against Nathan's throat, drawing a single drop of blood. First Blood, Gabriel said quietly. I win. The square went silent. Nathan stared at him, shock and humiliation warring on his face. You let me wound you first. I gave you a chance to surrender gracefully. Gabriel's blade didn't waver. You chose pride. Now you'll choose exile, or I'll choose it for you. The match is decided, Elder Morven announced, though her voice carried disappointment. The Alpha King wins. Isabella Vale is free to choose, Gabriel interrupted, stepping back from Nathan, lowering his weapon. As agreed. He turned toward Isabella, limping slightly, blood still seeping from his calf. The torchlight caught his face, exhausted, hurting, but triumphant. Isabella's feet moved before her mind caught up. She broke free from the guards, they didn't stop her, and ran into the circle, ran to him. You're hurt, she breathed, dropping to examine his leg. It's nothing. It's not nothing, Isabella. Gabriel's hand touched her chin, lifting her gaze to his. I'm fine. Are you? Was she? Her heart was trying to beat out of her chest. Her hands were shaking. The entire pack was watching, waiting for her decision, and she'd never been more certain of anything in her life. I choose, Isabella said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her voice steadied as she stood, facing the council, facing Nathan, facing every wolf who'd ever told her she had no right to decide her own fate. I choose Gabriel, freely, fully, without bond or command. The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. Then the moon flared. Silver light erupted across the square. Not natural moonlight, but something ancient and powerful. It wrapped around Isabella and Gabriel like living things, threads of luminescence binding them together. Isabella gasped. Her skin burned, not painfully, but intensely. She looked down and saw marks forming on her forearm, delicate silver lines that looked like braided moonlight, intricate and beautiful. Gabriel's arm bore the same marks. What? Isabella started. A chosen mark, someone whispered. Then louder. By the moon, it's a chosen mark. The crowd erupted into chaos. Elder Morven's face went white. That's impossible. Chosen marks are legend. They're real, Gabriel said, staring at his arm with something like wonder. He looked at Isabella, eyes wide. The moon heard you. It acknowledged your choice. I don't understand. Forced bonds are sealed by the council, Gabriel explained, still marveling. But chosen marks, true mate bonds, are sealed by the moon itself. When two wolves choose each other freely, with no coercion, no pressure. His voice cracked with emotion. The moon can grant them a bond stronger than any law. Isabella touched the mark on her forearm. It hummed with power, with rightness, with a connection that felt like coming home. The first in recorded history. Elder Morven breathed. She looked between them, and for the first time, Isabella saw uncertainty in the old woman's eyes. The moon itself has chosen. Then the matter is settled, Gabriel said, authority returning to his voice. Isabella Vale is my mate by the moon's own decree. Anyone who challenges that challenges the moon itself. Silence. Even Nathan seemed frozen, staring at the marks with dawning horror. His council-approved bond was nothing, worthless paper, compared to this. Gabriel turned to the assembled council members. Consider this your warning. The old laws end tonight. By tomorrow's sunrise, I will issue new decrees, no more assigned bonds, no more forced ceremonies, no more treating wolves like property. His voice rang out clear and uncompromising. Choice will be the foundation of every bond in my kingdom, or there will be no kingdom at all. You'll tear the packs apart, Elder Morven protested. No. Gabriel's hand found Isabella's, fingers threading through hers, their matching marks glowing softly. I'll set them free, and if the system can't survive freedom, then it deserves to fall. The crowd murmured, some in anger, some in hope, some in fear of the change coming. But Isabella barely heard them. She was staring at Gabriel, at this man who'd fought for her, bled for her, challenged an entire system for her. "Thank you," she whispered. Gabriel smiled, real and warm and entirely hers. "Thank you for choosing me. I'll always choose you, even knowing what I am, what this life will be." Isabella looked at their joined hands, at the marks binding them, at the future unfurling before them, uncertain and dangerous and absolutely terrifying. "Especially knowing," she said. The moon burned brighter overhead, blessing a choice made freely. And in the town square of a small border village, the Alpha King kissed his chosen mate while the old world crumbled around them. Nathan was escorted away by guards, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. Elder Morven and the other council members retreated, whispering urgently among themselves, already planning their resistance. But none of it mattered, because Isabella Vale had made her choice, and the moon, ancient, powerful, and patient, had been waiting centuries for someone brave enough to ask for the right to choose. Tonight, finally, someone had. And everything changed. The revolution had begun, not with violence, not with force, but with a single Omega who'd refused to submit, and a king who'd knelt rather than command her. Together, they would reshape the northern ridges, or die trying. But first, "Your leg," Isabella said, suddenly remembering. "I need to treat that wound." Gabriel laughed, the sound warm and relieved and beautifully human. "Always the healer." "Always," she agreed, tugging him toward her shop. Behind them, the crowd began to disperse, already spreading the story that would echo through Pack territories for generations. The night the moon chose, the night everything changed, the night love became more powerful than law. The wound wasn't as bad as Isabella had feared. She worked by candlelight in her shop, cleaning the gash on Gabriel's calf with steady hands while he sat on her workbench, watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. "You're humming," he observed quietly. Isabella paused, realizing he was right. "So are you." They smiled at each other, soft and private, and achingly intimate. "The mark," Gabriel said, touching his forearm where silver lines still glowed faintly. "Does it hurt?" "No. It feels—" Isabella searched for the right word. "Right. Like something that was always supposed to be there finally is." "I can feel you," Gabriel said wonderingly. "Your emotions, not thoughts, but presence. Like you're a part of me now." Isabella tested the bond, focusing. And yes, there, a warmth in her chest that wasn't hers, that tasted like relief and love and bone-deep exhaustion. "You're tired," she murmured, tying off the bandage. "I'm everything." Gabriel's hand found her waist, pulling her between his knees. "Tired, terrified, exhilarated. I just challenged the entire council structure. Tomorrow, the real fight begins." "Tomorrow," Isabella agreed, resting her hands on his shoulders. "Tonight, you rest. Will you stay with me?" "Yes." They made their way to his room above the forge, bigger than hers but still modest, still temporary. Gabriel moved carefully, favoring his injured leg, and Isabella hovered, instincts warring between giving him space and never letting him out of her sight again. "I can feel that too," Gabriel said with quiet amusement. "Your worry. It's warm. Good. Worry about yourself more often." "Why?" "When I have you to do it for me." Isabella swatted his arm but couldn't suppress her smile. They settled on his bed, clothed, careful, neither quite ready for more than presence. Gabriel's arm wrapped around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear. "What happens now?" Isabella asked into the comfortable darkness. "Now?" Gabriel's fingers traced idle patterns on her arm, following the new marks. Now I keep my promise. Tomorrow I'll summon the full council, not just the elders, but representatives from every pack in the northern ridges. I'll propose new laws. They'll fight you. Some will. Others have been waiting for someone to challenge the old ways. His voice grew thoughtful. Change is already happening, Isabella. Wolves have been questioning assigned bonds for years. They just needed someone in power to say it out loud. And the ones who resist will have to choose, adapt, or leave the kingdom. Gabriel's arm tightened around her. I won't force unity. That would make me no better than the system I'm dismantling. But I also won't allow anyone to enforce the old laws. Not anymore. Isabella processed this. You're really doing it. Rewriting everything. With your help. She tilted her head back to look at him. My help? You think I'm making these changes without consulting the woman who lived under the old laws? Who survived them? Gabriel's expression was serious. I want you with me, Isabella. Not as decoration. Not as the quiet Luna who stands behind her king, but as my partner, my advisor, the voice of everyone who's been silenced. Emotion clogged Isabella's throat. I'm not qualified. You're more qualified than anyone in my court. You know what it means to be powerless under unjust laws. You know what freedom costs. His hand cupped her face. I need that perspective. The kingdom needs it. They'll never accept me, an Omega who ran from her bond. An Omega brave enough to choose her own path, Gabriel corrected. An Omega the moon itself marked as chosen. They'll accept you, or they'll answer to me. Isabella wanted to argue, but the bond hummed with his certainty. He meant every word. All right, she whispered. I'll help. However I can. Gabriel kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. Thank you. They fell into comfortable silence. Outside, the town settled into uneasy sleep. Tomorrow would bring questions, challenges, the beginning of a new era. But tonight, in this small room, there was only peace. Gabriel? Isabella murmured, drowsiness pulling at her. I'm glad you didn't leave that first morning when you should have left but stayed instead. His arms tightened around her. So am I. Even though it got complicated? Especially because it got complicated. She felt him smile against her hair. The best things always are. Isabella drifted off to the sound of his heartbeat, feeling safer than she had in years. Morning came too quickly. Isabella woke to find Gabriel already dressed in formal council attire. Dark leather and silver threading that marked him unmistakably as the Alpha King. The gentleman from last night was still there, but authority wrapped around him like armor. I have to go, he said, seeing her wake. The council convenes at dawn, but I'll come back. I promise. Isabella nodded, fighting the urge to ask him to stay. Be careful. Always. He crossed to the bed, pressed a kiss to her lips. I love you. I love you too. Then he was gone, and Isabella was left alone with the weight of everything about to change. She dressed and opened her shop, despite knowing no one would come, not today, not with the entire town fixated on the council proceedings. But routines mattered. Normalcy mattered. The plants still needed tending, regardless of political upheaval. She was grinding feverfew when someone knocked. Not a customer. Mrs. Chen, the elderly Beta who'd been Isabella's first client, her first ally in this town. May I? Mrs. Chen asked. Of course. The old woman entered slowly, her eyes going immediately to the mark on Isabella's forearm. A chosen mark. I never thought I'd see one in my lifetime. Neither did I. The whole town's talking. Mrs. Chen settled into a chair uninvited, which Isabella had learned meant she had things to say. Some are afraid, some are hopeful, most are just confused. And you? I'm old enough to remember when things were worse, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Before your time, there were purges. Omegas who refused bonds didn't just get pressured, they disappeared. The council called it correction. Her eyes grew distant. I lost a sister that way. Isabella's chest tightened. I didn't know. No one talks about it, but those of us who remember. Mrs. Chen's gaze refocused, sharp and clear. We've been waiting for this, for someone with power to finally say enough. People will suffer during the transition. The council won't surrender quietly. They'll suffer more if nothing changes. Mrs. Chen reached across the counter, squeezed Isabella's hand. You did a brave thing, child. Running from Nathan, choosing the king, standing in that square and claiming your right to decide. Her smile was fierce. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. I'm terrified, Isabella admitted. Good. It means you understand the stakes. Mrs. Chen stood, straightening her shawl. But you're not alone. There are more like me. Wolves who've been waiting for change, who'll stand with your king when the old guard pushes back. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we've won. Mrs. Chen left, and Isabella felt something loosen in her chest. Not everyone would resist. Some would fight for them. The day crawled past. Isabella worked mechanically, anxiety building with each hour. What was happening at the council? Was Gabriel safe? Were they planning resistance, or... The shop door burst open. Gabriel stood there, alive and whole, his expression carrying triumph and exhaustion in equal measure. It's done, he said. Isabella's breath caught. What's done? The decree. Gabriel crossed to her, pulled a rolled parchment from his coat. Effective immediately. No Omega, Beta, or Alpha in the northern ridges can be forced into a bond without explicit consent. All existing assigned bonds are subject to review. Anyone who wishes to dissolve an unwanted match may petition the crown directly. Isabella's hand shook as she took the parchment, read the formal language that essentially rewrote pack law. They agreed to this? 7 voted in favor, 5 against. Elder Morven walked out before the vote finished. Gabriel's smile was grim. She's already gathering supporters. There will be resistance, probably violence. Some packs will refuse the new laws. And we'll deal with it, together. Gabriel's hands framed her face. This is just the beginning, Isabella. Real change takes time. But today we made the first move. Isabella threw her arms around him, pressing close, feeling the bond sing with shared triumph and bone-deep relief. They'd done it, not completely, not permanently, but they'd started. What about Nathan? She asked against his chest. Exiled. He has 3 days to leave Northern Ridge territory permanently. Gabriel's voice hardened. If he returns, he'll face treason charges. He won't go quietly. No, but that's a problem for another day. Gabriel pulled back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Tonight, we celebrate. Tomorrow, we keep fighting. Isabella nodded, then laughed, surprised by the sound, by the sudden lightness in her chest. What? Gabriel asked, smiling. I'm happy, she said wonderingly. Actually, genuinely happy. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Gabriel's expression softened into something devastating. Get used to it, he murmured. I plan to make you happy for a very long time. Is that a royal decree? It's a promise. He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of hope for the future they were building together. Outside, the northern ridges began its slow transformation. But inside Vale's remedies, two people who'd chosen each other freely simply held on. And for now, that was enough. 6 months later. Isabella stood at the window of the royal chambers, her chambers now, though she still wasn't quite used to that, watching the sun set over the northern ridges. The view from the palace was breathtaking. Mountains touched with gold, forests deepening to shadow, the river cutting silver through the valley below. So different from her little shop, though she still kept it. Still spent 3 mornings a week there, grinding herbs and mixing salves, talking to her plants. Gabriel had offered to build her a full apothecary in the palace, but Isabella had refused. She needed that space, that reminder of who she'd been before crowns and courts complicated everything. "You're thinking too loud," Gabriel said from the doorway. Isabella turned, smiling despite herself. He was dressed casually tonight, just linen and leather, hair loose around his shoulders. Not the Alpha King, just Gabriel, her Gabriel. "The Moonfire Festival starts in an hour," she said. "Are you sure about this?" "Absolutely." Gabriel crossed to her, slid his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "We missed it last year because of the council hearings. We're not missing it again." Last year had been chaos. 3 packs had openly rebelled against the new bond laws, requiring Gabriel's direct intervention. Elder Morven had tried to organize a coup, unsuccessfully, but the attempt had fractured the council further. Violence had erupted in 2 territories, requiring military response. But they'd survived it. More than survived. They'd won. Slowly, painfully, but definitively. Assigned bonds were now illegal throughout the northern ridges. Omegas had rights, protections, the freedom to choose their own paths. It wasn't perfect. Old prejudices died hard. But it was progress. Real, measurable progress. "I still can't believe we're actually going," Isabella murmured, leaning back against Gabriel's chest. "The last time we attended the Moonfire Festival, you begged me to kiss you, and I fell hopelessly in love." Gabriel's lips brushed her temple. "Best night of my life. You didn't even know me. I knew enough." His arms tightened around her. "I knew you were brave. I knew you were desperate. I knew you needed help." He turned her to face him. "And I knew, somehow, that kissing you would change everything. Did you know you'd end up married to me and rewriting pack law?" Gabriel laughed, warm and genuine, the sound she'd worked 6 months to coax out of him regularly. That part was a surprise, a wonderful surprise. Isabella touched the mark on her forearm, faded now to delicate silver scars, but still humming with the bond's constant presence. "Do you ever regret it? The complications I brought into your life?" "Never." Gabriel's expression turned serious. "You didn't complicate my life, Isabella. You gave it meaning, purpose beyond duty." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "You showed me what I was fighting for, who I wanted to be." Emotion thickened her throat. "You saved me. We saved each other." And that was true, wasn't it? She'd given him purpose. He'd given her freedom. She'd shown him kindness mattered. He'd shown her strength could be gentle. They'd built something together that neither could have achieved alone. "Come on," Gabriel said, pulling back and offering his hand. "Let's go make an appearance before the council thinks we're avoiding them." "We are avoiding them." "Yes, but they don't need to know that." Isabella laughed, lacing her fingers through his. The bond hummed with contentment, his and hers, impossible to separate anymore. They descended through the palace, nodding to guards and servants who'd grown accustomed to their informality. Some of the older staff still looked scandalized when Gabriel kissed her in hallways or when Isabella argued with him in council meetings, but most had adapted. The young ones even seemed to like it. The festival was already in full swing when they arrived, torches lit, music playing, wolves dancing and laughing and celebrating the full moon. So much like that night, 6 months ago. But different too. Better. Because now, scattered among the crowd, Isabella could see them, couples who'd chosen each other, Omegas walking freely without designated mates hovering, young wolves laughing without fear of forced bonds looming over their futures. Change made visible. "Your Majesty!" someone called. "Luna Isabella!" Isabella still startled at the title. Luna. Her. The runaway Omega who'd built a life from nothing. They made their rounds, greeting pack leaders, settling minor disputes, accepting congratulations on the kingdom's stability. Gabriel handled the political conversations with practiced ease, but Isabella noticed how his hand never left hers, how he kept her anchored beside him instead of behind him. Partners, just like he'd promised. After an hour, Gabriel leaned close. Want to escape? Desperately. They slipped away from the crowd, navigating toward the quieter edges of the festival. And there, Isabella's breath caught. There was the spot. The exact place where she'd grabbed a stranger's arm and begged him to kiss her. "You remember," Gabriel said softly. "How could I forget?" Isabella turned to face him, torchlight dancing across his features, just like it had that night. "I was so scared, so desperate. I just needed someone to help, and there you were." "There I was," Gabriel agreed, trying to pass through unnoticed, trying to avoid exactly this kind of complication. His smile was self-deprecating. The moon had other plans. "Do you think it knew?" The moon? Isabella touched their matching marks. "Do you think it was always going to be us?" "I don't know." Gabriel pulled her closer, one hand at her waist, the other cupping her face in the gesture that never failed to undo her. "But I'd like to think so. I'd like to think something out there knew we needed each other." "Gabriel, thank you," he interrupted gently, "for begging that kiss, for being brave enough to ask for help, for choosing me when you could have chosen safety." Isabella's eyes burned. "Thank you for saying yes, for protecting me, for kneeling when you could have commanded." "Always," Gabriel murmured. "I will always kneel for you. You're the Alpha King, and you're the woman who taught me what that title should mean." He pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. Not power, not dominance, but service, protection, respect. Around them, the festival continued, wolves celebrating under the full moon, embracing freedom that wouldn't have existed 6 months ago. Children played without the shadow of forced futures. Couples danced who'd chosen each other freely, all because one Omega had been brave enough to run, and one king had been wise enough to listen. "Kiss me," Isabella said softly, "like you did that night." Gabriel smiled, warm and devastating, and entirely hers. "Which part? The protecting you from danger part, or the falling hopelessly in love part?" "Both." So he did. He kissed her slowly, deliberately, like he had all the time in the world, like she was precious, like she was chosen. His hand cradled her head, the other firm at her back, holding her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip. But Isabella wasn't going anywhere. She'd run once, from danger, from control, from a future that would have destroyed her. She'd begged a stranger to help her, and he'd become her everything. Now she was running toward something instead, toward freedom, toward change, toward a future they were building together, one decree and one defiant choice at a time. The kiss deepened, and Isabella felt the bond flare between them, not the forced connection of assigned mates, but the wild, beautiful magic of a choice made freely and honored absolutely. When they finally pulled apart, Gabriel was smiling. "Better than the first time?" "Different," Isabella said. "The first time, you were saving me. This time, we're saving each other." "Yes." They stood there, foreheads pressed together, the festival swirling around them like a living thing. Above them, the moon burned bright and full, blessing a love that had changed a kingdom. "I love you," Isabella whispered. "My king." "I love you," Gabriel replied. "My heart, my choice. My Luna." Not because she'd been assigned to him, not because tradition demanded it, but because they'd chosen each other freely and fiercely when the entire world told them not to. And that made all the difference. Epilogue. Years later, when wolves told the story of the chosen marks, they always started the same way. Once, there was an Omega who refused to submit, and a king who refused to command. They met at a festival, under a full moon, when she begged him to kiss her. He said yes, and everything changed. The story would spread beyond the northern ridges, inspiring other territories, other kingdoms, other wolves who'd been told their choices didn't matter. Laws would shift, traditions would evolve, freedom would become the expectation, not the exception. But it all started with one desperate plea, one protective kiss, one brave choice. Isabella Vale hadn't begged a stranger to kiss her that night. She'd asked a king to see her as more than property. And Gabriel Blackthorne hadn't kissed an Omega to claim her. He'd kissed a woman to protect her right to choose. The moon had witnessed. The world had changed. And two people who should never have met, who should never have fallen in love, built a kingdom on the foundation of the most radical idea in pack history. That love was stronger than law. That choice mattered more than tradition. That respect was the truest form of power. They ruled together for decades, partners in every sense, transforming the northern ridges from a place of forced bonds and rigid hierarchy into something better, something free. And on every Moonfire festival, they returned to that spot, where a desperate woman had grabbed a warrior's arm and changed history with 3 simple words: "Please kiss me." The best lies, it turned out, were the ones that became truth. And the best love was the kind chosen freely, honored fiercely, and defended absolutely, against councils and traditions and anyone who believed freedom was too dangerous to allow. Isabella and Gabriel proved them wrong. One kiss at a time. The end. If you'd love to see more stories of wolves choosing their own fates, mates defying tradition, and love rewriting ancient laws, let me know in the comments. Your voice decides what tale the moon whispers next.